our kids are practically not going to school. And those who are going to school are the ones that are coming from the haves in the society, the schools that have the infrastructure, and the schools that can actually afford to run Zoom meetings. And even looking at the schools that are doing that, the quality, the setup, because the quality also is determined by how the setting was done. Was the infrastructure put in place, or was it a fix-it, that what we call technological fixes, something that we do as a reaction of something that has happened. Now we are caught up in a situation and all that. So as a country, we are not doing very well, particularly to the poor communities or to the poor groups, or to the marginalized groups in the community. Now, what measures can government do now? I honestly, now, you wouldn't talk about anything, because what we are talking about a technological transition. And a technological transition does not, it's not something that we can do like people are sick, we need to quarantine them, we need to isolate them. It's not something that we can do that. We are talking about infrastructure. We are talking about several sectors working together. We are talking about systems that are going to be developed together. And this is, I think we would have done well if the laptop project, you remember our laptop project?
Yeah.
If the laptop project was given a proper approach in terms of development, working on the policy project and the implementation of it, because they never looked at the transitions, at the systems that were working together, because I look at it as what I call a socio-technical transition, where you're thinking about these schools need to have technical or ICT in them, or ICT infrastructure. But who are you dealing with? You're dealing with schools themselves, which need to have infrastructure in terms of the labs and the computers and the other staff. We need to have trained staff. The teachers need to be trained. We are talking about communities that are accepting the digital era. We're talking about markets that are marketing their programs, and the computers themselves, and donors, and many other actors that are coming into place, including curriculum developers, who are supposed to develop curriculum that is supposed to fit into the ICT sector, and the online learning and all that. Yeah. And so,
and I want you to hold that thought. I want you to hold that thought, because soon we'll be talking about what the government is trying to do vis-a-vis what you're bringing to the table, and if the just try analyze the viability of these directives from government, because we understand that schools should reopen in September latest, and we want to see how viable opening schools in September is without implementing all these things you're saying. And Aisha, I want to bring you into the conversation before we talk about directives and everything. So far, the pandemic is challenging everyone, but most importantly, persons living with disabilities. And you're one person who interacts with these people. I mean, you're a sign language expert. Do you think this information is being relayed to such children, and is it relayed in a manner they are able to understand? Like, how do you tell a blind person to social distance? Do you think the government is concerned about these people from your experience?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Miriam. And I remember having this discussion when the Corona update started. There was a concern. You see, when CS Mutahi Kagwe was giving the update, there was not a sign language interpreter during the start. So from that, what does it mean? It means that as a society, we tend to forget people who are able differently in almost all cases. Yeah. So after some few days of that, so the advocates like Ashura Michael, who is a deaf young leader, they raised their voices, and now, yeah, the government now placed an interpreter there. So that only shows one aspect where these people are really, really forgotten. And I even remember, okay, I stay in Kibra, and we have maybe people coming to donate food. Yeah. So we see only people who are, we're called mainstream people only. People with disability do not get these privileges. So yeah, I can say that, yes, the government is trying, because you see when during the corona updates, when the advocates raised their voice, at least an interpreter was placed. But again, they're normally forgotten in so many instances. Yeah.
You're raising a very important aspect of inclusivity. And Madam Daka, I know you're interested in social protection, and some of our social protection policies highlight the need for us to involve people who are able differently, as Aisha says, in these documents, in policies and laws. And I want us to talk about implementation, because we have so many policy documents. We have such a beautiful constitution, but we fail at implementation. And soon we'll be talking about the health bill that was proposed by Kihika and the acceptability of it. And not just that, the already existing policies like the Kenya National High School Health Policy that is supposed to guide and prevent teenage pregnancy, but very few people know it actually exists. Where do we fail with implementation? Because as we know, we already have existing policies to cater for inclusivity and all these things. Where, as a policy analyst, as a policy expert, where do we fail with implementation?
Right. I think one of the biggest problem we are doing as a country is what I call siloing, or doing policy in terms of silos. You know what are silos? Those who have gone to the NCDD, what we call it, the one that collects maize from people, and all that. You see those long stuff, those long what do we call them? Those long tanks where they store maize. That is silo. That's a silo. So there's a lot of siloing in terms of policy, where everyone is working on a policy framework, and every policy framework works on its own and stands on its own, and everybody is trying to compete with the other to live and all that. And that's why I was coming to the point of talking about, when we are talking about ICT in education, something like that, just an example. What should we be thinking? We should be thinking about so many sectors, like industry, where industry comes in. We should be thinking about how the Ministry of Energy and actually KPLC and all these people come in, and we should be thinking about how the curriculum developers come in, researchers and institutions coming, and all that. And all these people should converge and work together to make sure that the implementation of such a policy, or no, what, a program for ICT in education. That when we are talking about, we want to put laptops in schools, but at the same time, the Ministry of Energy is doing very little about making sure that schools have electricity. We having the communication area, or actually the private sector, that is the Safaricom and these other organizations which are doing communication and making sure that we have connectivity, data connectivity, that they should be making sure that in those areas, the connectivity is very solid and all that. And we should be making, we should have other people thinking about the curriculum, but they should come, all of them, to bring this information together to build what we call a program or a system that is going to work and a sustainable system. So we don't think about a sustainability per se. We just think about what I'm doing. And then if it's you, Miriam, what you're doing. If it's Aisha, what Aisha is doing. And at the end of the day, we end up doing half-baked fixes which are not solving our problem. That is actually, that's something that is happening across board in terms of policy implementation in Kenya. So we have very good policies, by the way. Sometimes some policy documents, you read them, they are superb. But the issue is, how is this policy document connecting with the other? Because there is no way you can treat Ministry of Education as a one sector, as a one sector system. It's actually, it's a combination of several sectors coming together and working together to build that system to be solid.
Yeah, what I'm getting from you is that we need synergy. Synergy in our ministries, synergy in our policy documents, in our implementation. Now, there's a reason why we call this a town hall and not a webinar. We don't come in to just listen. Well, of course, you can listen and take notes, but we also want to hear your views as young people, as youths in Kenya who are interested in matters policy. Now I want to hear from you, where do we fail in policy? How can we create a more synergized system in solving our problems?
So is the area open to everyone, or
yes,
me?
It is open. Before you give us your feedback, if there's anyone who has suggestions in how we can create synergy, you can just raise your hand and then you'll be given an opportunity to speak. Or it's food for thought. I'm just putting it out there. If something comes up in mind, because after this, we want to create a very simplified policy guide moving forward, where we can share with TSC and other stakeholders involved. So your suggestions, your input, because the answers lie within us, within young people, within those of us who are most affected. If anything comes up in mind, if you want to share with us, just feel free to post your thoughts on the wall, or raise your hand, and then we'll give you an opportunity to speak.
Yeah,
I
so
hope that's in order.
On that question,
yes.
that you read, probably.
Yeah, just a minute and then we move forward.
Yes, one of the things that many countries have been looking at is an issue of co-design. Co-design in terms of when people are designing, coming up with the policy design, co-designing to bringing different players and actors together and having what we call a co-design. Before even a policy, people think about implementation. When it is supposed to be designed, we think together as groups, and the contribution is brought to the table, and yeah, so that people can hear one another, people can listen to one another, and they start working together towards a sustainable solution. So that from the beginning, I'm imagining the policy makers should have started working with the curriculum developers, the Ministry of Energy, the communication, the community, that is the civil society, and the schools, and the other stakeholders like the teachers and all that. But we have seen many of our education system where something is implemented and then the teachers are coming later, and they are actually implementers, or they are afterthoughts. So the core design for me is one of the things that we should start thinking if we are going to have sustainable transitions of any kind in terms of policy.
That's amazing. I'm also thinking in line with co-design, we need a lot of stakeholder engagement training in our government institutions, because some of them might not know it is important. So we also need to relay such information. We also need to devolve our conversations. We need to talk about public participation. What exactly is public participation? What is the threshold of public participation? You can just correct me if I'm wrong. You can also participate. I'm yet to hear your views, people who are listening to us via Facebook or just directly via Zoom. We need to disintegrate our conversations and get them from the boardrooms to the people. Yeah. So those are just some of the suggestions we might bring to the table. Now, I want us to move to a very contentious topic, teenage pregnancies, because we can't talk about basic education without looking at the disturbing numbers we were able to witness a few weeks ago. Aisha, let me start with you. Who is to blame for the rising cases of teenage pregnancy? Is it our parents? Is it the media? Where should we begin? Is it the society, or are the children idle? As a sexual and reproductive health expert, talk to us about that.
Okay, thank you. But before I answer that, Miriam, I would like maybe to comment about why as a country we don't normally implement our beautiful and impactful policies, for example. I also feel like sometimes we tend to politicize our policies. You see, we have very beautiful policies, but because maybe it was tabled by a person from party A, legislators from party B will not support. And at the end of it, it is a good policy, but because it due to politics, it will end up not being implemented. And also the aspect of lack of political goodwill. I don't know from the legislators or from all the stakeholders. If I take example of this reproductive health bill by Susan, you see, we had the religious leaders last week coming out, banning it down and all that. Yeah. So we really, as you said, Miriam, we need stakeholders training. I mean, people need to be informed. People need to know about these policies so that when they support, they know maybe what they're supporting now, something of the sort. Yeah.
That's
and
amazing.
Thank you. And to the question on who is to be blamed on the rising number of teenage pregnancies, I would like to say that this is not news. Yeah, I mean, we've been having so many teenage pregnancies in our country. Last year, we had so many girls, especially during exams, maybe others doing KCSE while at the maternity. I mean, so this is not something new. And I feel like as Kenyans, we need to stop acting shocked. Yeah, this is something that's happening. Yeah. And who is to be blamed? I think everybody has a thing on this, because if we have our parents, nowadays our parents, both parents are going to work. When they come back, they're on their phones. I mean, they do not have deep conversations with their young people. We have maybe religious leaders, they don't speak about these issues in churches and in mosques. We have these young people who maybe have the information. They know when they have unprotected sex, they'll end up pregnant, but they're not doing anything to prevent that. We also have the system. I don't know who the system is here, but from the recent statistics, we've seen that most of these young girls have been raped by close people, their fathers, their uncles, but these perpetrators are roaming freely. They're not being arrested. And what does that mean? What justice are we serving to these young people? So I would like to say that this is a collective responsibility, and we should stop asking who to blame. And I think the thing should be, what can we do, and what role can each person at their individual capacity or organization or whatever do in order to come to. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Aisha. And I think we'll need to organize another forum where we talk about the social justice system in Kenya.
Yeah.
Because research shows we are not confident in people who are supposed to take care of us. In as much as you've been raped or your child has been raped, when you report to the police station, you're not sure. Actually, when they take action, you'll be surprised they have. And that's a conversation we need to have another day. Now, Ndaka, Angela, you have a child.
Yes.
How do you begin a sexual conversation, like sex education? At what point should it begin?
Wow. That's I think Miriam, you are
As a
targeting me.
parent. As a parent.
Um, I think one of the things that I can I first talk about what Aisha talked about,
Yes,
and then
yes, please, yes, yes.
go to your question. And I know you remind me about that question. Anyhow, she was talking about who is to blame, and you were asking the same question about who is to blame and all that. And I'm looking at the way we have we have a lot that has changed, and we have not changed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about globalization. Uh, I'm here like almost how many miles away? Over 18,000 miles away from you, but we are communicating and we are talking like one on one. And these kids are facing the same. We are all facing the same, where we are all growing very fast. Uh, Many things have changed, including our dressing. We have changed in terms of we do makeup. Kids are doing makeup at 3 years old, 4 year old. They are doing makeup. It's not a big deal. We have changed in so many things, basically. But there are things that we have refused to change. And I want to specifically point out the way we look at the opposite sex.
Mm-hmm.
We have refused to change in that area. We still have so many people who have grown in so many ways. They have grown career-wise, grown in terms of interaction, level of interaction with so many people and all that, that whenever they see a small girl or a girl, even some who do not have breasts, as long as they have some little things that look like hips, they think that's a person that they can sleep with. Something like that. I mean, it's a woman that I can go to bed with. Although I am so exposed and I'm seeing a lot, I still think that such a small girl is still a girl. And that's something that is stemming back from our culture, that as long as a girl starts developing some small, let me be candid a little bit, small breasts and some little hips, she's good to go. She's a woman. She's ready to go to bed with anyone and all that. And that's why you find a 54-year-old person marrying an 11-year-old and all that in our culture. But even today, I'm expecting that some of us here, we were in Kenyatta University, and there's no level of nakedness that we haven't seen. I think you agree with me.
Yeah.
I saw everything. I was there, Aisha. So I saw everything that could be seen. Uh, I I never took. Sometimes I would take time to tell a person, please cover yourself a little bit. If really I feel this one is too much, but the the fact that I am used to seeing legs, right? I've seen them. So why should I go and catch a small girl? And I've seen all kinds of beautiful legs and all kinds of beautiful cleavages and all these things and all that. So what I'm seeing is a society that is really absorbing a lot of information, but which is also refusing to change. And now our younger people are struggling with the fact that they have all this information, they don't have they are not being told what needs to be done and what needs not to be done. To them, it's, I have the information, I'm experimenting with the information. And that's what they are doing now. Um, the I have been thinking about the argument of we have fathers and mothers who are going to work and all that. And I think that's something that is happening everywhere. Mothers and fathers go to work. It's not like it's Africa where mothers and fathers have started going to work. Mothers and fathers go to work. Mothers and fathers stay late in work. Mothers and fathers spend little time with the children. But now the question is, how are our systems ready to protect our children in terms of where they are placing them? Because our kids, some of them live in unsafe families, then they go to unsafe schools. And when they are abused in schools or in the families, they go to report in unsafe police systems. And at the end of the day, there is nowhere where it's safe. On the road, it's not safe. In the house, it's not safe. Even my own brother, I can't trust him. I can't trust my dad. I can't trust anyone. And I go to police. The police who will take my OB report is the same person who will re-abuse me again. And all those situations. And we are looking, I'm looking at it and I'm like, as a society, we need to start looking at what we call a paradigm shift. We need to start relooking at our values. What are our values? When did we stop valuing our own children, the futures of our own children? When did we stop valuing the other person? Because one of the African culture was protecting the other person, and protection of children was very primal into the whatever, other than the cultures that encourage marriage of children and all that. But we're talking about the protection of the African families was paramount. You will not find a father sleeping with that child. You will not find a brother or a cousin or a very close relative, even a neighbor raping a child and all that. So those are some of the issues we need to start dealing with and look at the social fiber. It's actually, as I said, a social fiber that needs to be worked on, because it's not about actually the government. The government can implement everything. I've heard today the Nigerian doctor who has recommended that a rapist should have what we call penile amputation if you're caught the first time. And the second time now your fingers are amputated, so on and all that. But the question is that a solution? Or maybe it will send a message and all that. Because we also need to have some sort of a shift from knowing that this child I'm destroying is just like my child, or I'm actually destroying the future of my child and all that. So that's societal change. Anyhow, to go back to your question, Miriam, how do I start speaking sex education? I think this is very simple. I don't know why it's a big deal to talk about some things. I know
maybe in our African culture, it has been deemed as a taboo. Maybe we need to demystify that and make it seem normal.
Yeah, we need to start talking about it and all that, because a child will come and ask you questions, and they do. They do. I remember one time my son came and asked me about the advert. There was an advert about trust. I think you're Kenyans, you know, the trust advert that used to bring chocolate, strawberry, and some other flavors there, you know that. So, and my son wanted to know this flavor thing, what it is. So the conversation, that's where we started the conversation. And he asked me, this flavors thing, what is trust? And I have to say it's a condom. And what is a condom? And you have to talk what it is all about and what it is used for. And then the next question is that if you say it's for sex, you have to be asked what is sex and all this. And I think one of the things is that you cannot shut a child down when they ask such hard questions.
But then again, let me ask, Do you think
Yeah.
there's too much information? And if there's too much information, how much is too much information?
Yeah, that's where I'm going, Miriam.
Okay.
There is there is there is information. There is too much information from a parent, and there's too much information from out here.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we need to know is that, Miriam, just before we started, there was a child who was asking for a phone from you, right?
Yes.
That phone has internet connection. That child, within a short time, she's able to navigate through different sites and YouTube and see stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So before you realize, they have Googled and asked what is the meaning of sex, what is the meaning of condom, what is the meaning of that. They Google, they actually go to Google and ask for definitions and all that. And so now talking about information is, when you're talking to a child, one of the first thing I encourage people is that build trust with that child. Trust is being honest that there is a time that you can tell a child, this thing, this we are talking about, we cannot talk about now because of your age. We can talk about it later. And I promise that we are going to talk about it when time comes to talk about it. That just know that at this level, you can understand up to here, and I can give you details up to here. That child will trust you, and they will know that what you have given them is information that is important. You have to sift to know when the information is too much. Of course, you have to work with instincts.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether people understand instinct, but I think you always know when you are talking a lot or when you're talking more than enough. You can even see from the reactions of the children and all that. And being honest is one thing, because if a child asks you a question and you don't give a response, they will go and ask that question to another person. Remember, if you have an house help in the house, a child will ask you a question, you rubbish it. The following day, they will be left the whole day with the house help, and the house help will be asked the same question. And if she's kind of this house help that will don't care, they will give all the information. Even they will experiment. They will do some experiments. The boys that are in the house will also show some experiments and all that. And that's what I had is happening in Kenya, that children are asking questions and they are even being shown experiments. They're even kissing, they're even doing all that stuff with people that are living with you, relatives that are living with you in the same house and all that. So if they can't trust you as a parent, they will be told that information. And if the person who responded to them is a person that they would trust. And so when you break the trust, now you have lost your child. And before long, what will happen? You will start talking about pregnancies. You will start talking about children who are gay within your home. Children, and I'm not saying gay is being bad. Is if you have made it as a choice as an adult and all that. But now when it's you're talking about a 10-year-old, 4-year-old talking about being gay and crazy stuff. I think for me, we need to have that courage to start talking about it. I know if I don't talk about it to my son, someone else will tell him the information, and it might come out in a worse way.
That is very insightful. And in as much as we're talking to a relatively younger generation, we all have siblings or friends, and that is information we can just, help people around us with. Now, Aisha, I know you really want to comment on this. And I also want us to talk about media and westernization versus African culture. But I want to throw this to the people listening in. There's a very beautiful comment I've seen from, I think, Sarah. She's talking about pornography. And we will merge that with media content, media censorship, and who should police what is shown in our media platforms. But I want to give this opportunity to Paul. Paul Abok will be one of our speakers for tomorrow's session, and you don't want to miss that. So Paul, if you can hear me, kindly unmute yourself. And let us hear your thoughts.
Thank you, Miriam. When I was hearing the issue about teenage pregnancies, I was thinking this is a very big issue that has always been left to households, but now it's national and needs to be handled at a national level. And largely, I was thinking that the numbers don't tell us the whole story. And that means there's so much information we don't know, and we can only speculate. So this gets me thinking, can government or the Ministry of Education, set out to collect data about these teenage pregnancies? What age group within this, what age group within these teenagers are highly affected? Is it 13, 14, 15, 18? We want to know which age group is largely affected, from what regions, circle it down to the villages. And then when we get this data and we realize, okay, these are the people who are affected, and then this is how they ended up in this situation, we go to those locations and probe more, so that the government takes a very active role to really want to know what is causing this to happen. Because it would drive us to other conversations, which are very important about us looking at media as well, because the CS for Education immediately went to matters pornography. And I'm like, some of these teenagers do not even have access to internet. So are we addressing the main problem? So that's basically what I'm saying. Let government collect the actual data that gives the real story. Thank you, Miriam.
Thank you so much, Paul. We'll be having more insights from Paul tomorrow as we talk about higher learning and assessing education, quality of education. So, Nicholas, I know you're listening in. Yes, Nicholas is still with us. I promised I won't put you on the spot, but you work for Ipsos Innovate. No, Ipsos these days. Do we have already existing data? Because I know you work with the government a lot. I know you work with institutions that are very keen to reproductive health and sexual reproduction and everything. Do we already have existing data that we are not tapping into?
Thank you, Miriam, about that. Yes, let me say we have a lot of data actually that is available that people can use. But the problem is most of the people maybe they don't have maybe the access to such data, which is there. There's sometime last year we did a survey in Narok, just giving as an example, and which targeted the same category that you're talking about, pregnancy in teenagers, early marriages, and the rest. And actually, as Aisha was saying, the perpetrators of these issues, they are close family members. But one of the things that maybe should be done, and that is maybe my opinion, is we need to maybe do advocacy or maybe create awareness such that even the parents also themselves, they buy the idea on what the policymakers are doing.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
At this point, I want to hear what you guys think.
Miriam.
Yes, please.
Maybe I would comment on something to add on what Nicholas was saying. And I've actually been thinking and asking myself one big question. In Kenya, we have this attitude that a child belongs to the parent. And I think all of you would just tell me, yes, a child belongs to the parent. And I think we need to start rethinking about the justice, the social justice aspect, especially in situations where you have actually found parents selling their own children to the highest bidder for sex and to get money. Actually, they actually encourage kids to go out there and fend for themselves. Some tell you that you have a beautiful body, but you don't know how to use it, and that's your mother. That's your mother telling you to go do that. That's your father telling you to go do that. So now, when does a child cease from being a parent child? In the former, stemming back to African culture, the child belonged to the community, and that's why the child was protected by the community, not the parent, the community. So that if a relative or a parent messed up with that child, the community came down on you and punished you. And there were justice systems in which the community used to punish people, the perpetrator. The perpetrator used to be subjected to some sort of justice and all that. But where we have lost that old African cultural mode of justice system. We have we are actually in the middle of nowhere. We have embraced modernity, but we have refused to develop a justice system for our children in the sense that I want to be an immediate family. I want this to be my children. If I'm the mother, I want this to be my children. I want to call them my own, and I don't want anyone to interfere with them. Even teachers cannot interfere with them. When a child is abused, teachers should not come in between the parent and the teachers and all that. So who owns the children? I believe now we need to move to a point where the children belongs to the government, in a sense that in as much as you give birth to this child, you are the guardian, you are the parent. There is some extent to which you can be allowed to be a parent. You have to hold some standards of parenting that allows for the protection of that child. If a child is being exposed to some harmful activities in your watch, then that child should be able to be taken away from you. And that now feeds back to, do we have systems that are in place, social systems that are in place that are able to take away a child from a parent who is not responsible to protect that child? So those are some of the systems that I'm looking at. I know it looks more Muzungu, but then again, also, when you look at most children, what they see by the time they get to 18 years old, you hear stories that kids have even been fungwa, mtoto anafungwa kama mbuzi, and then men are brought into the house. I mean, I've heard such stories, and I don't think that is human enough. So if a parent who is responsible enough to do that, such a child can be taken away from them by the government without government apologizing, because we no longer have the system, the community system that used to protect the children. Now the children needs to be protected, but who protects them? That's my question.
Hard questions we need to find answers for, and that's a very good suggestion. We need to move ownership or transfer ownership from the parents to the government. I think it's about time. In that
Miriam,
the parents,
something?
yes, please, Nicholas.
Yeah, to add on what that trend was saying, let me see this. The reason why, for example, the FGM fight has failed or maybe has not succeeded the way we wanted is because the community has not owned that program. What for example, usually happens is the government want to force people to stop that act, but they forget that FGM is a rite of passage, right? The only wrong issue with that is the cut, but the other changes that were there to make maybe a girl become a woman, all right? So maybe the government needs to change the approach of maybe being too hand on the community and maybe making the community own this some of these projects so that maybe they can be able to succeed.
Yeah,
true. I also agree. I'm looking at time and we only have 20 minutes or they're about to go. Aisha, I need you to comment on the proposed bill by Kihika. Where do we draw the line? Because suddenly when we are talking about sexual health and sexual education, we are very religious. I do not want to take a standing publicly, because I'm moderating and I'm not the speaker, but I will speak about it on another session. Where do we draw the line between religion, culture, and what needs to be done? And let me begin by asking, do you support the proposed bill?
Yeah, some tough questions there. Anyway, yeah, I've gone through it, and I understand there are so many myths around it. Now, so many people
Okay,
who are...
let me just stop you for a minute.
Okay.
So I know some few people in this forum, and if you've gone through the bill and you oppose it, just let us know why, let us understand why, and maybe we can start tackling it from there.
Okay. Yeah, so...
And there's someone, sorry, before you start, I don't want to stop you again. There's someone who does not agree with you, Sarah. I think after Aisha gives a submission, you will tell us why you don't agree. Children should be handed over, or ownership should be handed over to the government. Yes, carry on, Aisha.
Yeah, so I've gone through the bill, and I support it as a sexual and reproductive health trainer, because what the bill entails, mainly, I think where the bone of contention is on access to family planning. And what the bill states is, if I can refer, please, it states that everybody has a right to access family planning and counseling services. Those are the major points. Of course, I'll not go through it. It's quite...
Yes.
Pages. Yeah. And also access to family planning, it basically states that people need to have quality services, every person. And another bone of contention is on termination of pregnancy, which of course is abortion. But it's not so different from what the Constitution says, where a trained health professional must be the one procuring it. And the bill does not support abortion. What the bill states is basically what the Constitution says, where there is pregnancy can be terminated when there is need for emergency treatment, when the pregnancy will endanger the life of the mother and the child. So the bill is mainly focusing on ensuring that everybody has access to reproductive health care. Yeah, that's basically it. And from the discussions, the bone of contention is on termination of pregnancy, and it clearly states that it does not support abortion. It only states the areas, situations where a woman can terminate her pregnancy, which is almost similar to what the Constitution says. Yeah. So I think that's basically it. Yeah, and I've seen even our religious leaders really opposing it. And I think let's just wait and see. Let's just wait and see. Yeah.
And I think as youth in policy, I can speak for youth in policy. The problem comes in when people do not understand what is going on, and you rely on either your political leader or your religious leader to tell you what exactly is going on. I'll take the BBI, for example. We are not talking about BBI today, but very few people actually know what is entailed in the document. And as youth in policy, we want to come in and actually break down some of these bills in a very simplified manner for the young people in Kenya. In that, when you're basing your argument, it's easier. You're basing your argument from a point of knowledge. And I think on some of the bills, like the health bill, we'll try and break it down and share on social media. Beryl, I hope we'll have a chance. I know you're a big advocate for social media, because most of our young people are there. So when you're talking about advocacy, how can we use advocacy? How can we use social media for advocacy and all that? I can also see there's a very heated debate on the wall between Sarah and Angela. Can you just hear your voice, Sarah? What do you have to say?
Hello, everyone. So I honestly, I don't know where to start, but my idea was that we cannot seem to be shifting blame to anyone when it comes to matters teenage pregnancies. And Angela has made that clear that this is a matter of everybody's concern. And as somebody else has put it here, if anything is to change, that thing, whatever it is, should start from the family level. So whoever it is, you and I, the community, the schools, the government, all of us have a responsibility to ensure that these messages of speaking against teenage pregnancies and doing what we need to do at the grassroots to reduce the numbers of pregnancies are preached across the board, so that we stop shifting blame and take it up, get to the root causes, and get to understand what it is we can do to help our children. Because then eventually this thing, teenage pregnancies, will come to haunt us. And we need to brace ourselves if we're not going to do what we need to do right now for the sake of the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you for your contribution. And I think you're in agreement now.
Yes,
with
we are in
Angela.
agreement now. Yes, yes, we are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, as we get to the tail end of our debate today, we do not like finishing our conversations without having a take home. As a young person, as youth in this country, as policy enthusiasts, Aisha, so say for example, your neighbor has been defiled or your child. Give us the proper steps to take. Who do you report to first? Are there helplines you know? Yeah, take us through that.
Yeah, so when a child has been defiled, the first step is he or she must go to the nearest hospital. Yeah, as of now, I do not have the hotlines, but I'll have them before the end of this session. Yeah, so before 72 hours, and the reason for 72 hours, of course, is to avoid pregnancy and STIs. Yeah, and then after that, they will get a letter, of course, saying that the kid has been defiled.
Okay, we seem to be losing you. I think you need to check on your connection.
Yeah.
Nicholas is giving us a helpline, children helpline 116. It's supposed to be toll free. Feel free to share. We will also relay this same information in different groups and different WhatsApp groups and our social media platforms. I don't know if we have Aisha back.
Yes. Can you hear
okay.
me?
Yes, now I can hear you. Carry on.
Yeah. So from the police is now where the case can be taken. And also I believe we have organizations or people who are working towards this. I believe that they are very instrumental. And also we have safe spaces in our midst. Like, for example, I saw Makueni, they launched one safe space belonging to the county, which was really commendable. Yeah, I hope other counties will follow suit. Yeah, I think that's basically the steps which should be followed. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I can see 10 minutes to go. Before I give our speakers a chance, I think there's an echo. Yeah, before I give our speakers a chance to give their final comments, I would like to give Beryl a chance to make her submission and her contributions to this debate. Beryl, if you can hear me, kindly unmute yourself. I think we seem to have lost her. There's also a favorite one of mine, Nkanai Cynthia. Can I just congratulate you in public for winning the Shikan Awards? You were actually nominated and you won, and you're a champion for the girl child, and you speak against teenage pregnancy and all these things. I hope you can hear me. Kindly unmute your mic. I know you relate a lot with these people. Please kindly say something to us.
Okay, so I think it was Paul who was speaking earlier. And I just want to say that I agree with him. Sorry if there's some background noise. There's a lot of activity going on around our house right now. But something I wanted to say is I feel like the teenage girls themselves should be part of these conversations, because most of the time we find that in forums, we are the ones who are speaking from the outside. We are not inviting people who have actually undergone those things, people who have undergone rape, people who have become teenage mothers. We don't include them in this conversation. So we really don't know what is happening. What we do is we assume that we know what is happening. You'd be surprised when you ask these girls, because there's a project that we did where we went to a school to distribute pads, and the girls were telling us that the people who are defiling them are the teachers. You go leave the pad with the teachers, and then the teachers are the ones, also when the girl goes to take the pad, the teacher says, oh, you have to sleep with me, or let me touch you here and there so that I give you the pad. So the girl ends up being pregnant, and then we as the outsiders say, we get 20 pregnancies from this school. These girls are really misbehaving, when at the end of the day, it's the teachers who are making these girls pregnant. So I feel like we should involve these girls in these conversations as much as everything. Let us not, as outsiders, just assume that we know everything that is going on. Otherwise, thank you so much for inviting me here. I've really enjoyed the conversation, especially hearing Madam Angela talk. She's really wise, and thank you for creating this forum. I'm really honored to be here and to just interact with all of you and to hear such meaningful conversations. Thank you, Miriam.
Thank you, Nkanai. And Nkanai has a, what do you call it? Kindly remind me.
Community-based
Yes.
organization.
Just tell us what you do. Me, I'm giving you a chance to shine. Tell us what you do.
Miriam.
We will follow your podcast. I really believe in the work you're doing, and I'm so sure soon we will be partnering as Youth in Policy and whatever it is that you're doing. As we finalize this conversation, just tell us what you do.
Okay, so I run a community-based organization called This Is Me. It is centered around SDG number 10, which is reduced inequalities. So what we do is we have monthly projects centered on SDG 10, so restoring human dignity to various groups. And one of our main programs that we run is sanitary towel distribution, books distribution. We help street kids and such like things. So every month we have a project where we just try to reduce the inequalities in society. Another thing that I do is that I run a weekly podcast where I talk about taboo topics, things that are not talked about normally in society. For example, periods and mental health and such like things. So if you'd like to know about more things that I do, you can visit our Instagram page at thisisme.ke or my personal page at _Nkanai. There you can access my podcast, and you can also access the work that I do with This Is Me. I am also a public policy student at Kenyatta University. Yeah.
And you should also say I mentor you.
Yes, and I am mentored by none other than Miriam Beatrice and JJ, but she's not in this platform right now.
Yeah, just joking. Thank you so much, Nkanai.
Thank you so much, Miriam.
Let me give our speakers a chance to give their final submissions. And let me just say, this is not a conclusive conversation. We spark up conversations and then we let you guys continue. On our social media, I will highlight our social media platforms. Kindly follow, let's have conversations. And we are not just talking. Well, yes, there's power in conversations and making a paradigm shift in our generation, but we also work towards engaging people that matter, the relevant organizations, the relevant stakeholders. I have so many notes that we'll just compile in a policy brief and share with TSC and share with a few other organizations, and then probably do a memorandum to Parliament. Those are some of the activities we'll be doing in future. So I recommend and I highly encourage all of you to be looking out for our webinars and our town halls and give your suggestions. Be a voice, not an echo. So Angela and I'll start with you. Final submissions. Kindly unmute your mic.
So I was saying, I was listening to you. I was not even thinking about what I was going to do. But I'm thinking about what we have started and talking about. I believe that we are the young people of this nation, and we have some space, we have a voice, we have some space that we can talk, and we have the content that we can share. We have values that we would love our community to change too, and our younger sisters and brothers to give. And actually, basically, we are, I would say we are victims of systems that have not worked in the past, policies that have not worked in the past. And I think we are the best people that can look at transforming things that are not working in our world today. So for me, it's a call for all of us to step out, talk about what needs to be talked about. I find young people a little bit, you give up so fast, rather. You say, you talk, and you forget that when you realize people are not listening, you just give up and you leave it. But you forget that if I start the conversation and Miriam joins in and Aisha joins in and everyone, 23 of us, start talking about the same thing, it will never be that the mad woman started the conversation. Like, if one person went into the street, let me give this analogy, went into the street and was screaming, like the other lady was saying that she was impregnated by the CJ, then that person is normally referred as a mad person. Most people will just call that person mad, and they will discard that person. And most likely, maybe the police will just come and collect that person and throw them into a cell and for disruption of the public interest or something like that. But if 23 of us went to Milimani and we were shouting there for some reason, or if we found 23 pregnant girls staging a demonstration in Milimani, then it sends a message to everyone to start thinking that this is actually not business as usual. This is not madness. There is an issue that needs to be addressed. And that's why I'm calling the young people to come out and start talking, start engaging in conversations. Don't get into a mental situation where you feel like my contribution is not being felt. But your contribution is going to be felt if you can all hook up together and talk and voice the things that affect you. Otherwise, we all perish. I'm not young myself. I'm in my fourth floor, going to fifth floor there. But I love young people because I know they have a future, they have some potential, they have some things that are in them that needs to come out for people to see. So that's what I'm leaving you with. Let's come out, let's continue talking. Let this town hall continue exposing, and let's see more youth coming next time. Talk to your friends, let's talk. Voice out everything that you feel like you need to talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Aisha, what do you have to say as we conclude, as we wrap up this conversation?
Yeah, maybe focusing on reproductive health issues, I would like to say that we've been burying our heads in sand for quite a long time, and it's time that we face reality. Vitu kwa ground, tusiangalie venye ziko, let's face reality. And I think it's also high time we stop blame game. Let every person do what they're supposed to do. Yeah, I think that's the only way maybe we can change all this. And I would like to say that it has been really nice being here. I've learned a lot. Yeah, so this is really powerful. And I believe in the power of us young people. We are the shapers of culture, the workers for change, and the dreamers of the dream. So let's do this. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Aisha. I cannot thank you enough. Our two speakers for day one of our town hall, Madam Angela Ndaka and Miss Aisha Said Ibrahim. It was a pleasure. You guys are amazing. Thank you for contributing. As we wrap up, as I said, I have so many notes, but my take home We need to start thinking stakeholder engagement and co-design in our policies. We need to think collective responsibility. Let's not just imagine that it is a one person responsibility to take care of our children as they're growing up. As Madam Daka has said, a lot of things have changed, but we've refused to change ourselves. So can we think paradigm shifts? Can we think about changing our mindset and the people around us? That's how change begins. When talking about sex education, number one rule, be honest with your children, be honest with your siblings, and then only then can you have an honest conversation with them. And if you don't answer their questions, they'll have platforms where these questions are answered. It might not necessarily be the right answer, but they'll get their answers. This is a completely different generation from us. And Paula Bock, thank you so much for your contribution. We need to start thinking about data and accurate data and sources where we can find such data. Like if we had a place, be it on social media, like, because we have a lot of fake news in our time, where can we get safe, accurate data? We also need to start having conversations around that. Thank you so much, Beryl, for your contribution. When you're talking about sustainability and advocacy, how can we get social media involved? Because social media is a huge platform for us to relay information. I cannot mention all of you. Sarah, I get you, I feel you. Let's not shift the blame to only one individual. It is societal. In as much as we are saying there's a systemic breakdown, let us all take an individual responsibility. And as Madam Daka has said, I cannot iterate this enough. As young people, as youth, we have this space, we have the solutions. Let us voice our solutions and let us be heard. Now, in coming town halls and coming forums as Youth in Policy, we want to have trainings on how you can relay your solutions as an organization, as an individual. If you have a solution to a particular problem, how do you start a petition? How do you construct a memoranda? How do you document a policy brief? And these are things we're really excited to share with you guys in our future forums. I will end by saying this, and I think let me just paraphrase what Madam Daka has said. We are victims of failed systems, and hence the best solutions to this system, because we know where the shoe pinches most. Now I call upon everyone who tuned in for our town hall today, either on Zoom or Facebook. I appreciate your time. Thank you for your contributions. If I can just mention a few people as we finalize. Oriel Watch, I have seen your contributions on the wall, and we will document all that you're saying. Marvin, Paul, Philbert, you've done a tremendous job on the technical side, admitting people and keeping intruders away. Nicholas, thank you so much. Thank you for the numbers you've given, the helplines. We'll compile all that and share in our different social media platforms. Charmaine, as always, thank you for making time and always being the first one to, just come for our platforms and our town halls and webinars. Wiltau Dondi, thank you. Oh yes, thank you for tuning in. We will have a side discussion later on. Fiona Mutembei, thank you. Michael Odira, thank you. Paul Labok, I can't wait for our conversation tomorrow. Sarah Mwangi, Cynthia Kanai, I am so proud of the things you're doing. Beryl, thank you for always making time. Anek, David Othiambo, Brian Morris, thank you. I can't mention all of you, but I have tried. We do not take it for granted. There are so many things you can do, especially during quarantine, but you chose to tune into our conversation today. Now, as I finalize, I don't want to take much time. I'm 2 minutes late, and I promised to be done by 6. This is a 2-day town hall conference. Today has marked day 1. We were dealing with basic education and the elements that, surround. Okay, I'll read that, Sarah. Let me just conclude. Yes, we were talking about basic education today. Now, tomorrow, we graduate literally to higher education. What is wrong? Why? How has online learning been for you? You can give your comments and feedback. Do you feel like there's someone who's not doing their work somewhere? Because I have talked to a few students from different, especially public universities, and we'll be talking to one of the lecturers from JQuat tomorrow to give us their experience. Do you think we should hold the management accountable? Why do students boycott efforts by management to have online classes going on? How can we move forward? I mean, who is to lose? I mean, there's so many questions. I can't end all of them now. So you don't want to miss tomorrow's session. I want you to come pumped. This is a safe space. Give your views, and then we'll see what to do. We'll take it up after that. Same time, same place. Of course, same place. You might change. Either go to the bedroom, the benefits of quarantine. But yes, youth in policy will be here tomorrow. We'll have our speakers, Paul Abok. I'm sure you've heard his voice and his sentiments. I'll tell you what he does tomorrow, so look out. We'll also have a lecturer, as I've said, from JQuat, and then we'll also have Aisha and Angela to just, top up the conversation. As I conclude, Youth in Policy is an upcoming community-based organization that works towards having conversations with young people and engaging them in relevant talks that actually matter, and getting them to come on board in the decision-making table. So as young people, we've just been sidelined, and people make decisions for us, thinking they know what we go through, but we are saying no. We want to be a part of the discussion. We want to be a part of the solutions to the problems we have in the society. So we look at different areas. We look at youth and their education. We look at youth and their economy. Some of you tuned in for our last month's town hall, where we're talking about unemployment rates in Kenya. We talk about youth violence, extremism, and all those things, and what's our role. We look at youth and climate change, amongst other things. So for you to get this and more information, kindly follow us on our social media. We recently, actually yesterday, launched our YouTube channel, Youth in Policy. Yes, it's Youth in Policy, but I'll share the link immediately after this. On Instagram at Polyouth, on Twitter at PolyouthKE, and on Instagram, Youth in Policy or Polyouth. Just follow us and subscribe and look out for our future town halls and share with your friends, and let's have conversations as young people. I'm looking forward to having more interactions with you guys. It's been a pleasure moderating this session. My name is Miriam Beatrice. I am the current chairperson for Youth in Policy. Thank you once again for making time, our speakers and everyone who tuned in. At this point, I want to call this meeting to an end. I know I did not read all your comments, but we will document everything you're saying and share a simplified document with all of you guys. Good evening, good afternoon from wherever you are. Good morning. I know in Dhaka it's already Friday where you are. Thank you so much for sacrificing and making time. Have a lovely afternoon. Have a lovely evening. God bless you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
I think that
Thanks,
went well.
Miriam. Bye.
Silbert, if you can hear me, kindly end the session.